Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this wonderful event. We're just all joining in here around our screens to welcome you to join us. So we'll just wait a second for our audience and for everybody to come to the room. My name's Jane Kamain, I'm from Nine Arches, and I'm delighted to welcome you all this evening to gather with us to celebrate the launch of this wonderful book, There Is Still Love Here by Dean Atta. I'm absolutely thrilled to be presenting this event tonight, to be with Dean, who's going to be reading for us, and some very special guest poets, Nikita, Gill and Deanna Rodgers, who will also be joining us for what I hope will be an uplifting, heart-soaring, reassuring, celebratory, joyful night of poetry. And I'm just going to mute my speakers for a moment. Bear with me 1 minute, just all joining in here. Apologies for that. It's absolutely wonderful to have our audience with us on YouTube. If you're joining us, please do use the chat. It's always a delight to have you chatting and talking along with us, and it's lovely for our poets to know that you're in the room also with us. We will be starting in just a moment, and this evening guest readings from Deanna Rodger and Nikita Gill, followed by Dean Atta's reading as well. So a great many thanks to you all. Please do say hello to us in the chat if you're joining tonight. And without further ado, I'm going to open this event and welcome our first reader, Deanna Rodger, to tell you a little bit as well about Deanna and to introduce her fully. Deanna Rodger is a leading poet in the UK, and most recently her reimagined version of If was read by Serena Williams. She has been welcomed to perform and facilitate workshops all across the world, including in Mexico, Sudan and Beirut, and commissioned by institutions such as St Paul's Cathedral, Young Vic and the BBC. And we are absolutely delighted to welcome Deanna to join us this evening. Will you please give a big round of applause and welcome Deanna Rodger.
Hello. I should really applaud myself so I can get the vibe. I beam in from my office in an Apex in Bristol, and I'm very, very honoured to be able to share this space as a performer. If I wasn't here as a performer, I'd be here as a punter. So it's great to be here. I've known Dean since the beginning of my poetry career, like the very, very beginning, and always credit him and the other co-tutor, Joseph Coelho, as being the reasons why I write poetry. It was to be honest, it was the night tracksuit that really won me over in the first instance when I rocked up to go to my first writing workshop, and Dean was there in a fitted and a night tracksuit. But it was when he performed that I just suddenly the world started to make sense, and I could see myself being a part of it in the language that he used and the turn of phrase. And I find that in this collection still. And so I'm freaking over the moon to be able to share work with you and also hold this book while I do it. So Dean's been really instrumental, not only at the beginning of my career, but throughout it. And from running events together and running workshops together and kind of learning so much from him, he also, when I made the big step to move to Bristol, sent me through an opportunity that was taking place at the University of Bristol, at their theatre collection, which was a residency to respond to a playwright's writing, which was in their archives. So a playwright called Kevin Elliott had left all his work to an archive in Bristol, and Dean, knowing that I was moving to Bristol and knowing that I was, I think you knew how terrified I was to lose my career and my sense of self, kind of just sent this opportunity through. But I know I'm not alone in that. Dean is constantly sending opportunities through when he receives them onto people who he thinks that will grasp them or not. And I think that that's really the spirit that I know this poet through, is the generosity, not only in his work and his performance and his workshops, but also in the opportunities that he sends through to other people for them to make stuff from it. And so I'm going to read something from what I made of it. So I ended up making this lovely book, and it is one of my favorite pieces of work, probably because it's so weird. And I don't think I'm alone in wanting the world to realize how unique and weird I am. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think there's this idea that everyone wants to be cool, but actually I think everyone wants to be recognized for their weirdness, you know, and like their secrets and the sludge that is inside them. And in some cases, like the worst things that they've done, they want those to be seen and still be loved. And this was a collection that I pulled together that helped me pull some of those things out and put them into the light. And I love them. and everyone who's read this book loves them too. So I'm just saying, you should get your hands on it. I'm going to read one poem from this. It's a massive poem. And then I'm going to read another poem after, which was has another link to Dean, of course. And the first poem that I'm going to read is called His Fingers Have Left, which is what this collection is called. Isn't it beautiful as well? Do you know what I mean? Isn't it beautiful? Designed by Joanna Layla. And you have to turn the book this way to read this poem, which always excites me when you can turn a book around to find new ways of reading it. And it's a golden shovel. So all the poems in this collection are form poems, and that was deliberate. I had a kid and everything felt chaotic, and I realized that I needed to put form into my writing practice in order to find freedom. And so there's 5 form poems in the first half of this book, in the first section. And in the second section, I break down what these forms are and how I wrote them, which involved a lot of Sharpies and A3 paper, because I think that's the best way to write poetry. And so this golden shovel is written from the perspective of a phone. And it is, and I chose the form of the golden shovel to demonstrate what we take from other people. So the golden shovel is a form that was created by Terence Hayes, and Terence Hayes took a Gwendolyn Brooks poem and made the golden shovel. I've taken Hayes's idea and used the nursery rhyme that Agatha Christie took to serve as the plot for her best-selling novel, And Then There Were None. Kevin Elliott, who is the playwright that inspired this work, took Agatha Christie's novel and turned it into a play. Those familiar with the nursery rhymes will notice that I have removed an adjective and a deeply offensive noun. I chose not to replace these. The absence of something bad does not make good, but clears space. We are always recreating, reimagining what has already been and borrowing from the world around us. I ask, how do we make better? I use the style of killings as written by Agatha Christie when writing each of the stanzas. So a golden shovel, what is it for those of us that quite rightly don't know, because we don't need to know everything? It's a contemporary form of poetry created by Terence Hayes when he took a Gwendolyn Brooks poem, We Real Cool, and wrote a new piece of poetry in which the last word of each line, read in order, formed the original poem twice over. Kind of like a backwards acrostic poem, which uses whole words rather than letters. Let's hear the poem. And get comfy, it's got 10 stanzas. But that's why I also chose this one. I mean, we're all on our sofas, right? Do you know what I mean? It's not really a poem that I choose to stand in the middle of a train station and say. His fingers have left. After and then there were none. Oh, it contains sexually explicit language. 10. Revise this version of events. Your girl went home and pissed on Palais cocktails you stayed out. Bumped into a past link who happened to be fiending for a pussy dime. Despite rumours of a shitbag, you couldn't fill one, fucking into Christmas Day. He choked you on his dick whilst his tongue drunk dialed your clit and his little fingernail roamed recklessly by itself. 15 when you two went out. 2-time dumped, and then you got checked at the clinic. You will need to return there. Now face back to where you were counting down to bus. 10, 9, 9. Your Princess Disney diary gives me the evil sat on the chest of drawers, teaching some sort of growing up. Its code of P's for period and scribbled hands for fingering is very thorough. You ain't had unprotected sex, but panic when late. Look at me through the clumped mascara in your eye, and now the other one. Tell that bully, Mr. Busby, you're sorry. An accident, you overslept. Remind him of the lock and throwaway version of himself, of being human and inexplicable and unreliable. And when he tucks at the bold mess of you holding out a pink punctuality slip, then take it and meet your girl in the locker rooms beneath the headmistress's office. And there you'll slick baby hair down like enforced curfews because you were smart-assed enough to skip registration for clinic when it opened at 8. 8. First professional poetry trip. Fully paid for solo traveling. Lugging around a case of books to fit first year uni revisioning. Lanyard of keys round your neck like the one stolen by Devon summers ago when money was less heartbreak and Facebook. One day you'll jump on an 87 bus and not miss his stop, your girl has said. The boy chased you with your own lanyard of keys, and he'd never promised to be the one to stay there alone. So you've gone to compete in a poetry slam in France and found distance in a bunk bed. You figure you'll move on then. Their son is almost 1, and your summer's been locked up. There were call abroad charges, weighing the exchange rate. We're too broke, and it's too late to place +44 in front of 7. 7. There's a fine art to chopping red onions without welling up. Google it. The bulb releases an irritant which sticks to the tear duct, causing one wannabe chef to weep. However, if chopped with a sharp knife, by which I mean axed and left to himself, or held cling-filmed captive in a fridge until the pain is split to halves, by which I mean fry the pale and basic bitch with the caramel hair, then add rice and garlic and kidney beans and simmer, and there will come a time to serve, as it were, at least to remove the pan from gas mark 6. 6. Notes. She was only playing homeless until she was with child, and if psychic harm is a physical threat, then I am capitalism to a hive. Not that I had any idea I was a doubting Thomas to her bumblebee nest. She was my girl, and I was stung to not be the first one told of this angel, to learn for a oh and add-on, where you're chatting the scripture and then the news is drop-kicked as if there is sin on your lips, or as if there were an allergy that had displaced a fetus with a high five. 5. I swear to tell the truth. She was going. Then he pulled up pissed on a ped and let her in. I'll confess, she accused. What you drink driving for? Aside from your dead mate, you're breaking the law. On her life, she was courting the one. She, 19, terminally lonely. He, 25, got his story dressed up after going in. His record is for all to view in Chancery, a well-cut trench coat and fresh kicks. But when he sipped a rave of brandy, then he'd lash out. Well, that night he smashed my screen so sharp there were scarlet voicemails all over the floor. Were it not for her elastic sense of judgment, justice would have been forged by RJ at 64. 4. Did you just check my time as he was going down on you? You should kick him out. That straightened hairdo will throw you into rocky waters. Your love for this man is a sea monster, as fictional as a man bearing a sack of gifts wearing a red suit. Whose ears will hear this herring call, fallen, pushed, or swallowed? Regardless, you're the only one who went along to play a part to plot and who schemed to depths that will come out in the wash. Then what? What shanty will you sing his son's mum 12 days from now? There we were on Christmas Eve, unplanned. He dropped me home at 3. I had no idea how quick walking was going to get you out of the relationship you were in, leading you to home to grab the spare key, mind a flaming zoo, a feeling caught, a stampede as a left foot slipped in front of a right, big steps from a bullied girlfriend who will no longer bear the weight, spit and ash and fear hugged around her chest. Asthmatic love, like safety was one stop too far. Keep walking, left, right, and breathe, a plan, a mission of stealth. Go in and then ascend, and then look at his heaving body there, sweating in his sickness as if he were weeping for two. You clutch me on silence, sitting opposite her mate, next to her in this quiet bar on Northcote Road. The suggestion you should perform has me like the sun too close to fair skin. One moment we're the sideline hoe, and the next we've got centre stage, your frizzled pulse betraying this one-up uni poem of love and ambition. And it wasn't about him then, but now it sounds like there is a chaser heart, which there was not. Round for round, hers is the one his fingers have left to smash my inbox for an allegiance, a Thigora one, an exodus he abandoned. He went pell palm to her blackout, an unassailable command, demoting your seraph's chorus, which had hung over the cherub himself as a holy holiday shot for taken land. I am the fallen burner. I am the heathen. I am the Christmas plague. I am the revelation of the covet. We receive and send texts from the finger of her. Why the fuck has he got your phone? Woo! Oh my God, that was so amazing! Woo! Woo! Let's do it again! So, to close this set, I figured I'd perform one more poem, if that's okay. And this poem was written at the top of the lockdown, which is when these events started, right? When we discovered Zoom for the first time. And Dean and I are part of a collective called Keats House Poetry Collective. And we've been part of many collectives together, Keats being one of them. We've been able to travel the world with poetry and each other. And they sent out a commissioning opportunity, which was obviously well received as a writer who was seeing everything kind of have to shut down. And I had just given birth to a baby that April. And so was kind of like, oh, gotta keep working, gotta keep writing. And so we got offered a selection of poems that John Keats had written to respond to. And I chose Ode on a Grecian Urn. And so did Dean. We didn't know, but we're just in sync. so which offered like this really exciting opportunity for us to perform that poem together. So to take it stanza by stanza, and we did that over Zoom, which was just a lovely time to connect. I don't know about you, but sometimes socializing on Zoom I find difficult and strange, but doing work on Zoom, there's a conversation flow and there's a focus, you know? And then we wrote our own separate responses, which obviously, because we're two different humans, were completely different. And so this is mine, which is called Ode to Summer Infant Duo. And summer infant duo, this is an important fact, especially for those of you who might be thinking about keeping an eye on children or nieces or nephews or grandkids. It's a baby monitor that has split screen. So you can put it in two different cameras in 2 rooms, but 1 screen. Genius, literally. And so, so around that time, George Floyd also got murdered. And I think that memory should stay present, especially in light with what's happened to Chris Kaba recently and also what's happening around the world. And so I wanted to share this poem with us all. to share. Well, ode to summer infant duo. The sofa soft to sit, your button pushed. It is the end of day, the curtains drawn. 2 babies in their cots, milk fed and Your face ablaze, split screen shows one to yawn. TV turned off, the news shows nothing new. The news was born 8 weeks ago today. You film right now, 2 sisters side by side. What will their story be? Must I curate? No option to record, so could you zoom just close enough to hear their dreams this night? Your lights flash green, the toddler starts her song, a celebration tune she calls Happy. Happy birthday to Will, Fabert and Tom. Her bottle raised in hand, she rolls to feet, to park, but stays in bed transfixed by dark. Stay there, sweet girl. Your world has been furloughed. Your dad is home to walk you through this heat. Wild ecstasy is spent, best friends apart. Will you climb slides again? Small legs run free. Or is bold love stolen from tomorrow? New is not renewed. The plans I planned may not be yours or hers. Your sister, new on this new screen. What can you teach your folks of now? Can we relearn to trust another whose skin we cannot touch or save? Stay sleeping, babes. Please don't see how we mourn restaurants and raves, football and men we've never met. We've lost. We've lost what we once had. Undoubtedly better not to know than have it snatched away. Asha, what big eyes you have. What strange stare. Which distant universe did you come from? Was your cord wrapped round to hold you there? Did you mean to choose this? You've chosen wrong. This planet is screaming cats and fried kids. Dirty dishes and landfills of washing is 2-faced carpet and 4-slick tires where love drives blinded, exhausted and sick. Care has been abandoned without testing. This welcome is a cleaner who's tired. What on earth can be done, summer infant? You show only now and more now. Breathe in. Switch off dumb when there is no movement. Though you tell more truth than other screens. The sirens and fire and virus out there. Murderers that let sleeping babies lie. Who have neglected the pleas for more milk. The blackout curtains tricking day to night. I press you back on just to check and hold stare till I see a breath out. And your screen goes black. They're alive though, still. Thank you very much. What a great event! Best warm up! Who's next? Thank you very much. See you later.
Thank you so much, Deanna. What a wonderful, wonderful reading. Beautiful, generous words, poems that explore golden shovels. How do we make things better? Powerful choruses of revelation, hard-won experiences, joy. Deanna, Rodger, thank you so much for opening this wonderful event for Dean Atta. We've really enjoyed listening to your wonderful poems and your wonderful words as well about Dean and the journeys through poetry that you've had together that have led you both to become kind of poetry companions, and it's just lovely to hear those stories. It's what really makes these launches feel full of connection and joy. So thank you very much. Our next performer for this evening is the poet Nikita Gill. Nikita Gill is an Irish Indian poet, playwright and illustrator. She's published 8 volumes of poetry and 1 novel in verse. Her work predominantly deals with Greek and Hindu mythology, folklore and retellings from women's perspectives. Her newest book, a YA poetry collection called These Are the Words, was published by Macmillan Kids and released in August 2022. And I also have Where Hope Comes From here, Nikita's collection from 2021 as well. Her empowering and feminist, beautifully illustrated poetry collections explore all the things that Nikita wished somebody had told her when she was younger. Will you please welcome Nikita Gill.
First of all, can I just say, Deanna, you absolute absolutely blew me away. Like there's twice I've already cried, and now I have to do a set, which is going to be really hard. But you are just such an incredible poet, and I have known of your work for a really long time, long before I was published. And it is such an honor to share a stage, a Zoom stage with you. And Dean, we have like, I have known Dean for a while now, but I knew of Dean's work. I think I heard I Come From a very long time ago now. And ever since, his work has just been so moving. And I was saying this earlier on, but Dean is one of the few poets I know whom my nephews are reading and my parents are reading. And if I give your work to my grandparents, Dean, they will love it too. You speak to so many generations with your work. And it's because you are such a special poet. And every single one of the poems in this book is a banger. I cried multiple times. And that's how I know a poetry collection is really good. You know, when you read so much poetry and you listen to so much poetry, sometimes you become a little bit numb, but your work always, Dean. So thank you. And thank you for having me here at this very special event. I'm going to start actually with something which is unpublished, and it's from a new collection. It's not a collection, it's like a novel in verse about this goddess, and it's basically her voice which is basically telling this, and it's kind of nameless because it's so fresh and it's so new, but it came to me about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I really liked the way that it came out because it came out in the middle of the night. It woke me up, this poem. So maybe you can help me name it. 1. This is how the story goes. A boy raised in captivity falls in love with a son he sees for the first time, flies too close thinking he can possess it, doesn't listen to a father's warning and plummets into the sea. His father grieves, so everyone grieves. The story is immortalized in the boy's blood, a tale passed down with skin-delicate care through eternity. 2. There is another story. In it, a boy asks too many questions, lusts too much for more, dares to question his father's authority. He is banished from the skies, sent falling from the heavens, but he does not die. Instead, he is given and named ruler of all that is cruel, painful, and wretched within the world. No one grieves for this boy, as he is deemed the root of all evil. 3. It is the way of the universe for boys to disobey their fathers, for children to question what they know and want more from their lives. 4. The way a father chooses to love after this happens is how the story is told. 5. This is the reason everyone weeps for Icarus. 6. It is also the reason no tears were ever shed for Lucifer. Thank you. Thank you. So this next poem is actually, I wrote this poem as a performance piece, and so it comes from my culture. And when I was quite young, because my parents had an arranged marriage, my grandparents had an arranged marriage, it kind of was taken for granted that maybe I would also go through that process. And in an arranged marriage, obviously, the parents have quite, they introduce you to a proposed partner. It can be quite awkward because you can go, you will end up in a restaurant. Like the modern way to do it is you go to a restaurant and you sit at one table and your parents sit at the other table. just about far away enough where they think that you can't see them, but you can see them, and you know they're watching you, and they're like just studying your facial expressions and everything. And then you have to kind of have a conversation with this person and decide whether you want to, you know, get married to them and make babies with them and spend the rest of your life with them. And for some of my friends, this has worked really well. But I guess what this poem is about is why this didn't work for me. And it's called "The Guy My Parents Want Me to Marry Asked Me to Describe Myself." Look, I tell him, I am a commitment phobe, and this isn't my fault. This is because people are generally crap. Too many lovers who have insisted they loved me have left the hot water running for too long in my house, or not cared about the planet in the very specific way that I do, or voted Tory, or told me my aloo gobi isn't great and I'll have you know it's bloody brilliant, or not cared for a good lager and... Sorry. What I'm trying to say is, don't worry, I'm not due to fall in love till 2024 anyway. My tarot cards told me so. I mean, if you believe in that kind of thing, I mean, it's not wild that I check my horoscope every morning, is it? Or that I know that I'm a Gemini sun, Aries moon, Capricorn rising. And if the day is going to be really bad for any of those three signs, I carry red jasper in my right pocket for anxiety and an amethyst in my bra to dispel bad luck. None of this is weird. My tarot cards told me so. But really, the best way to get to know me is not to read the poetry. Don't follow me on Instagram. And for God's sakes, don't visit my Twitter. You see, women like me, we are made from a different kind of mud. We watched our mothers wear silence instead of mouths for so long, followed religions that told them that women are always smaller than the men in their lives. We didn't have a choice but to grow these repressed voices into howls in our bellies, let them swell and tumble out as jagged opinions. We built skyscrapers instead of castles, read Audre Lorde instead of William Wordsworth, Sarojini Naidu instead of Edgar Allan Poe, sharpened our own bones into knife points just in case we needed to weaponize our bodies, and it didn't stop there. You see, those are the better parts. You see, hiding pain as courage is what all good wolves do. I have named harsh hands home. I have stumbled after women who could not decide if I was an experiment or a forever. I have been a scarlet woman for so long, I cannot even remember his name. You need a cast iron stomach to digest me, which is to say, I don't think there is anyone in the world who can survive me, which is to say, sometimes you need to leave wild things just the way you found them, alone. Oh, I love you guys so much. Thank you. Deanna, you're like the best. Thank you. So this is a slightly sad poem, and I think the reason this is sad is so the first guy I ever dated, there were a lot of problems in that relationship, but the main issue was that he couldn't really speak to me, and we broke up a very, very long time ago. And in some ways, he was like my second big love. And a few months, almost a year later, I found out that so trigger warning, this has mention of suicide. He had killed himself, and it still weighs on me. I was so young then, but it still weighs on me that maybe I didn't ask him the right questions. Maybe I should have stepped up, asked him if I had just known what to ask him and how to help him, maybe he would still be here. And I wrote this poem from that place, and it's called Everything I Never Asked Him. How often do you tell your mother that you love her? How often has your father held you and let you cry? Did you ever love a soul you always knew would never love you back? Did you ever love a man fiercely enough to hold him close yet not name him brother? Can you speak of the first girl who broke your heart without calling her something cruel too? Can your heart ever heal from the things you will never tell me were done to you? Is there a worship inside you that calls to a forgotten forgiveness in you? Is there a sacred you wish someone understood, a sweeter language you wish someone else knew too? Have your fingers known fists before they knew the openness of holding hands? Has your skin known bruises before it has known the tenderness of touch? What would you be the god of? What would you be the god of? If they named you a god of soft things, would you finally learn gentle in ways it was withheld from you? Sorry. Thank you. I still think of them. This poem is a very regular feature in my sets because I think when you carry something like that, I remember, I'll never forget the first time I performed in this poem. There was a 17-year-old boy in the audience who came up to me and he was in tears. And he said, "Thank you. You opened something in me that I didn't realize was sitting within me." I'm going to do my last poem now, which is actually from These Other Words. It's actually the first poem I'm doing from the collection, the only poem I'm doing from the collection. And it's a really short piece. And it's, I think when this one doesn't really need an introduction because it's all in the title. When you hate yourself for revisiting old wounds, you revisit old wounds for the same reason birds will come back to the places their nests have been destroyed. The mind walks into the same room because it wants to know how to fix those floorboards, paint the walls, turn this into a more habitable place. If it tries something different just this one last time. This is survival. This is learning how to live through pain once the skeletons have decided to walk out of the closet and refuse to go back in again. Call it the worst story that you have ever owned, a car crash within your bones that you cannot stop staring at. But the only way to understand pain is to look at it and feel it without turning away. There is no shame in this. Eventually, it will scab over and it'll heal. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me as well.
Thank you, Nikita, for that beautiful reading. That was just wonderful. And for poems that kind of wake us up, for poems that open up things within us that are wild and fierce, are funny, are charming, full of heart. What a beautiful reading. It was really wonderful to hear poems that also refused to make themselves small and wanted to bring voice so that things could be heard that really mattered. It's been just wonderful listening to the poems. We've had some really lovely comments on YouTube as well from our audience who are watching live with us this evening. Please do feel free to join in the chat online. It's really lovely to read those comments. A huge thank you again to Nikita and to Deanna, who've been joining us as special guests. This is the launch this evening of Dean Atta's collection, There Is Still Love Here. It's a really wonderful chance to celebrate this book, and we are so delighted to have this opportunity here at Nine Arches Press to be joined by wonderful poets and to celebrate this book being launched. Many of you will know Dean, but for those who don't, just a little bit of information about Dean Atta. Dean is a British author from London. He is a Malika's Poetry Kitchen member, National Poetry Day ambassador, and LGBT History Month patron. Dean's poems have been highly commended in the Forward Prizes for Poetry, shortlisted for the Bridport Poetry Prize and the Oxford Brookes International Poetry Competition. And his debut collection was shortlisted for the Polari First Book Prize. His first novel in verse won the Stonewall Book Award and was shortlisted for the CILIP Carnegie Medal, the Jhalak Prize, the Los Angeles Times Book Prize, and the Waterstones Children's Book Award. Dean's latest novel is Only on the Weekends, and it was published in May 2022. And hot on its heels, I'm really delighted to say, is There Is Still Love Here, Dean's second poetry collection. Dean has had a frankly incredible 2022, so we're very proud here at Nine Arches to have been part of that. I just also wanted to say a few words about Dean's beautiful second book. On reading the first draft of his potential manuscript, I was really struck by a couple of things immediately. The clarity and precision of his poetry, his ability to go straight to the heart of the matter, and in poems, find the exact way to pinpoint what it was that brought pain or light or joy or release. His poems often centre upon the things that uplift and nourish us, whether that's food, family, shared stories, languages, gifts, and time in the company of people we love, something that's a very big feature, I think, of his poetry collection. This is a book that also, I think, as we've been hearing tonight as well from our poets, a book that reflects the time it's been written in. The pandemic is, of course, there, that strange world of outdoor haircuts and enforced distance, of worry and of isolation. It's a book that addresses the upheaval and finding of your feet in a new place, of longing for transformation and longing for what you've left. Skillfully, carefully, Dean always finds a way of creating that moment of transformation. Those London landmarks which yearn for return during lockdown, the haircut and the chair and the lovers who float away together. Magic, mundane or otherwise, is a really subtle strand of power throughout these poems. So, with our huge congratulations to Dean Atta on writing this wonderful book. It's been such a pleasure to publish it. And now, will you please welcome Dean Atta so we can hear the wonderful poem.
Oh, thank you for that wonderful introduction, Jane. It's been such a pleasure to work with you on this collection and with Angela as well. Thank you both for all the hard work you've put into making the book happen, getting it into the world and sharing it. You know, across many platforms, and thank you to Julia Forrester, who's been helping us with PR as well. It's a lovely, small and mighty team that you have, and it's just incredible to be part of it. And I know so many Nine Arches Press poets that that I love and whose books that I treasure, that I was just so delighted to become part of this stable with this particular book, because I feel it fits right in, and I'm just so glad that it's found a home with Nine Arches, and that we get to celebrate it today. And I'm just so happy that, you know, we could be joined by Deanna and Nikita. Deanna, being part of your journey is just one of my greatest privileges, and I just feel so lucky to kind of see everything you do and be there with you at times and watch and admire from a distance at other times. It's just brilliant. Your career and your life is on an amazing trajectory, and you made it all happen. You know, you think it happens by accident, it doesn't. You made amazing choices, Deanna, and credit to you, with your career, with your partner, with your kids, all of it. I just admire you and love what you're doing in life, you know, and the dedication you put into explaining how that poem works, or the poems in His Hands Have Left works. I think you try and understand life that way. You want to kind of like really dig in and understand how things happen, and good luck with that. It's very hard. Life often makes no sense, but I think, you know, poetry gives us comfort, and I think your poetry, Nikita, is a comfort to so many people, myself included. And I'm just, yeah, so honored that you could be with me and us tonight, because, you know, you've been a real comfort and support to me recently as well. And, you know, what people see here on the screen or at events or anything else we've done together publicly, you know, there's so much more behind the scenes. And I just, you know, really appreciate from you, Nikita, and you, Deanna, the kind of the support, the moral support, the phone calls, the messages, the cheerleading. You know, it kind of helps me carry on, you know, and it's been an interesting year. You know, it has been a wonderful year with 2 publications. It's also been a challenging year with lots of things for all of us. You know, the past few years have been very challenging. And yeah, I'm really lucky to have amazing friends. And I know many of you are tuned in watching, so thank you. I'm seeing your WhatsApp messages, but stop. But also, do comment on the YouTube, because I'm going to read all of that back after. Yeah, there's too many people to thank, but I do want to thank Becky Thomas, my wonderful agent, who's helping me navigate publishing and being a writer, because it's You know, it's a really interesting job. You know, we start out writing poetry because we just love it, and then, you know, there's this kind of like, we gotta like sell it or whatever, like, and that's really weird. But thanks to wonderful publishers like Nine Arches, and thanks to wonderful agents like Becky, selling your wares doesn't feel so icky, it just feels beautiful. So yes, I'm gonna start now by reading the first poem in the collection, which the lovely Nikita was very gracious and yeah, supportive enough to share, and it kind of went viral, which was very lovely to see happen with this wee poem. And it's called On Days When. On days when you feel like a wilting garden, gather yourself, roll up your lawn, bouquet your flowers, embrace your weeds. You are a wild thing playing at being tame. You are rich with life beneath the surface. You don't have to show leaf and petal to be living. You are soil and insect and root. So thank you, Nikita, for sharing that. And thank you, yeah, for all the poets that share work online. I think it's a very generous thing to do, you know, and I think whether you're doing it on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube, on your own blog, I just think it's so generous. And, you know, a lot of my poems have been shared at various times by myself and others, and but it's really special for me to bring them all together into a book and see them. And some of these poems were written some time ago, so they might be familiar to people from years back, and some of them were written more recently in lockdown. This is one of the kind of some time ago poems. This is called How to Be a Poet, and it's tongue-in-cheek. Don't take it all too seriously. And before I read this one, I'll say it's quite fitting that I'm here in my mum's house. I'm in my childhood bedroom because the internet at my place is not very good. So I wanted to make sure I had no glitches, but it's also really special to be here because a lot of the poems in this kind of hark back to living here or missing my mum when I was living up in Glasgow, or just loving my mum so much. And the first line, like I say, don't take it too seriously. How to be a poet. When your mum loves you unconditionally, say, "Mother, your love is so cliche." Seek rejection, relate to roadkill, let life crash into you. Embrace the pain of others when you have none of your own. Write poems on your phone. Be at one with technology and at odds with nature. Be a natural disaster, but blame society. Be a contradiction. Take your time to rush. Hurry up and wait. Do average things, but expect to be great. Look at things differently. Close your eyes and feel. Stand out in the sun and pretend to be a flower. See all people as flowers. Try and fail to be the sun. Blame your mum. Blame your dad. Blame everything you never had. Don't rhyme without reason. Don't hang on to the pencil shavings of life. Refuse to stay sharp. Keep writing. So writing is something that has really sustained me throughout, you know, really difficult times. And for a content warning, the next poem deals with death, the next two poems, in fact. But this one was about a Greek Orthodox tradition. My grandfather died, and for 40 days in the Greek Orthodox Church, you're meant to wear black for 40 days, and it's in kind of inspired by the ascension of Christ, the 40 days. And yeah, I followed this tradition and wore black, and it kind of had a profound effect on me, but not for religious reasons, I don't think. No ascension. You're in hospital, so we buy plane tickets. You are dying when we reach your bedside. You are dead, so we wear black for 40 days. 40 days are over, but I'm still wearing black. In London, no one knows why. In Cyprus, we moved as one black cloud of grief, the whole family dressed in the same color. Either side of your grave, I was black. And this isn't a eulogy, it's about me. How I haven't cleaned the mud from your grave of the shoes I bought for your funeral. How often I look at the photos I took of you, smiling, dying, dead, and being buried. How your watch and prayer beads are in the drawer of this desk I am writing this poem on. How grief makes much more sense to me than feeling depressed when times are good. How a grandfather is meant to die old and surrounded by his family, just as you did. How my notebook is a grave, and my laptop is a grave. How my phone is a grave, and my bed is a grave. And there was no ascension after 40 days. And I have stayed buried with you. And as I said, the next poem is also about death and grief. And this book is actually dedicated for Faye. And Faye Fadeyome is a dear friend. And yeah, was a friend of Deanna's as well. And yeah, this deals with kind of reflections on kind of towards the end of her life, but also it kind of shifts through time because grief does that, I think. And so this is called Fragments of Faye. I've already forgotten the weight of the coffin. If it was heavy because I was the weakest, or light because the other 5, being taller, carried most of it. I know you were not in there, just like my grandfather wasn't the body we were allowed to escort to the mortuary. I cannot believe I carried you on my shoulder. Before I left the hospital, each time I held your hand, I kissed your forehead, I said goodbye. In your kitchen, I prepare the vegetables for the juicer. I tell you I'm upset. You refused medical treatment when it was offered, but I respect your decision. I don't think a juice cleanse is enough to beat cancer, but it can't hurt, I suppose. I press the juice and discard all the pulp. What a waste. The hospital cinema is playing Battle of the Sexes. I pretend I haven't seen it. As they roll your bed and all its detached equipment down the corridor, you let me hold the invitation, which you call our tickets. This is my nephew, you beam, at one of the staff steering your bed. I know, he smiles at me. She talks about you all the time. The second week in hospital, you are so weak. They wash you in your bed, but you beg to have a shower, and they agree to use a hoist. You tell me about it with such glee. I try to remember you before your face was gaunt and your legs were before your face was gaunt and your legs were swollen, before your stomach was a balloon, before the cancer in your womb spread. And I remember you have come to visit us at university in Brighton. You stay with Tracy and the girls. I come by in the morning, ready for our day. They tell me you're still in the shower. You come down singing to yourself, smiling. Sorry, you say with a not sorry shrug. I just love a long shower. Your smile so wide, your cheekbones so high, your skin slick with shea butter, your long locks so neat, tightly twisted at the roots. And now you are ready. I think one of the hardest things I've found about no longer being religious is kind of thinking about what happens when someone dies. I think it's very hard. And so I think writing about people has become even more important because I want to capture and keep some of their memory and share it with people, because it's very hard to talk about any of that. But in the poems, I feel like I've captured some of those moments that I find too hard to talk about. But yeah, this next poem, Two Black Boys in Paradise, is also, it's an interesting one because, as I've said a couple of times now, I don't know why I'm stressing the point that I'm not a Christian anymore, but like, I think to convince myself I'm not blaspheming by like writing about the Garden of Eden in this way. But it was very important for me to reclaim Eden for myself and for Black queer people in particular. So that's why I've written Two Black Boys in Paradise. They won't be here forever. Maybe just as long as this poem. These two black boys in paradise. Two black boys. Can you see them? These two black boys are free. These two black boys are happy. Black boys are real boys. Black boys are not just little men. Do you believe black boys are real? Like, for real, for real. Real black boys feel. These two black boys are a healing. Did you poison the apple already? Did you dig up the tree? Are you trying to plant these black boys in the ground? Did you call them apple thieves? Did you call the police? There are no police in paradise. There are no white people in this paradise. The two boys in this poem have black boy names. They have grown up now, but their names still suit them. Masculinity has not been required of them. They're in love with each other and they're in love with themselves. One kisses the other's Adam's apple. They don't make babies. Maybe paradise is just meant for two people at a time. Maybe it will be two black girls in paradise next time. Maybe they won't have to be boys or girls. Maybe it will be you in paradise with that person you have in mind right now. And yeah, I'm in love. And that's important to say and celebrate and appreciate and be grateful for. And yeah, love has taught me a lot of things. And I read this poem by Ada Limon called What I Didn't Know Before. And I wanted to write a poem after that one and think about what I've learned from being in love and from my partner. And so, What I Didn't Know Before, after Ada Limon. Our love will die if it is not watered with compliments and gratitude. How to change gears on a bike to make it easier to go uphill, to be gentle, squeezing the brakes, going downhill. How to discover water in the mountains, an ear to the ground, following its flow. The difference between a coot and a moorhen. You teach me to recognize that white shield on a coot's head. I teach my niece. Now, when she says, look, a coot, she points to name our love, gliding on the water. It's a nice one. The next one is called Strawberry Thief. And as I'm not at my place, you can't see these curtains, but my partner and I have these William Morris curtains with the Strawberry Thief pattern. And throughout lockdown in particular, that's what I was looking at most of the time, and doing my work at our kitchen table or our dining table, and yeah, looking at these curtains, and then him, and then the curtains, and then my laptop, whatever book I was reading. But yeah, missing my mom and my family. But yeah, so this is called Strawberry Thief. William Morris curtains surround the dining table, nested in the bay window. These thrushes never able to reach the strawberries. Maybe they're waiting for someone to wish them bon appetit. as we do with each other, neither of us French. But we don't say the equivalent in Greek, Jamaican patois, or Italian. We're two Englishmen in Scotland. Tonight we eat shepherd's pie. You've made it for me for the first time. It's my comfort food, reminds me of home, my mother's home in London, where we call the living room the sala. Even though the Greek is Saloni, village Greek, she tells me. She is alone in her sala, her daughter and granddaughters nearby, but unable to visit. Me here in Glasgow, the rest of her family in Cyprus and Switzerland. You don't miss your family, you admit to me. Your shepherd's pie is better than my mother's, I admit to you. You can't see Nikita, but she was like, ooh, like that was the most controversial thing I've ever said. Sorry, Mom. This one is also written in lockdown, and one of the lovely things my partner did during lockdown, when he brought home groceries, he also bought a bouquet of flowers like every single week, and it seemed really sweet, but he was going out to work, and I was watching these flowers die, and it just felt very very sad. So this poem is called Empathy. You do not have to be a flower in a vase to see the tragedy of it. As a gesture, I understand why he brings them home each week. But groceries tell me he loves me more than this beautiful death bouquet. Each morning, another one drooping, drained of color, dropping petals. They look like they're gasping, no roots, no chance of lasting. And my partner is a doctor, and yeah, so he was working very hard during the pandemic and works hard all the time. And yeah, I was feeling a bit conflicted about, like, you know, being at home and just like writing and Zooming, and it just felt like I wasn't doing anything, you know, worthwhile. And I know that's not true, but it's how it felt at the time. And this little poem is called Night Shift, when he had come home from a night shift. You taste of toothpaste and I taste of coffee. I'm ready for the day and you're ready for bed. You're an essential worker and I'm a writer. I felt many things, but never essential. I don't know if you writers can relate, but and this is called Mundane Magic. And yeah, Jane alluded to this one in her introduction, and this is one of the very special moments that kind of mixes what really happened with kind of how it felt, I guess, and that's what poetry can do, right? Mundane magic. This is our new normal. We go into the garden fortnightly to cut my hair. The extension cable fed through our bedroom window, clippers plugged in. I sit shirtless on the fold-out metal chair as the clippers buzz. We begin to float, you, me, and the chair, 8 legs in the air. The extension cable anchors us to our home as the haircut continues. Tiny particles of me carried off in the wind. This mundane magic. All I have to do is sit here. We've been doing this for the best part of a year. Okay, I'm going to end with this one, and this is kind of a letter back to myself at the time when yeah, well, it's all in the poem actually, but it's the person I'm writing to is myself, basically. But I share it with all of you because I think, why not share it all? Dear broken-hearted man, I am you and I am healing. I'm writing to you because I want you to know it's going to be okay. You're going to Faye's funeral today, and afterwards, you're booked to perform poems at a medical school. You feel guilty because you opted out of writing a poem for the funeral. You'll read a poem chosen by Faye's family. It's okay. You will write about Faye one day. Go to your show tonight. You'll notice his nose at first, and then his eyes. He'll give your grief a smile. You'll have sex with this stranger. You won't tell him about Faye right away, but he knows enough about life and death, and he knows how to restart the heart. Thank you. Well, yeah, that's what I'll share with you. There's much more in the collection, so yeah, if you liked what you heard, please grab a copy. You can order it from the Nine Arches website, and there are book plates on the way to Jane, so she can put them in and you can get a signed copy. But thank you so much to Deanna and to Nikita, to Jane and Angela, to Julia, to Becky, and to everyone who's helped me make this book happen. All the different editors of every journal and anthology and magazine that's taken a poem of mine in the past, few years. You've given me the courage to feel I was ready to have another collection, and I'm so glad it's in the world with you all now. So thank you, and I hope you enjoy reading it when you get it.
Thank you, Dean. Thank you for that absolutely beautiful reading. There's such all-encompassing poems with so much empathy and so much to give us. In these poems, we have the guides to being poets and being sons and friends and lovers. Maybe paradise is meant for two people at a time, you write, and it's such a beautiful line. I shall take that away this evening. I'm also really glad, Dean, you mentioned and read How to Be a Poet, because I realised that was one of the first times I think we ever, there's a lovely coincidence between that poem and the Nine Arches book, How to Be a Poet, and I think that's the first time we ever had a sort of online conversation that made the connection. So it was wonderful to hear those poems, and also to think about how poetry captures life and all the precious people in it, and kind of celebrates those things. So thank you so much for the gift of this book. There is still love here, is out now. Nine Arches are absolutely delighted to publish it. I'm just going to bring my fellow poets back onto the screen as well, so we're all going to join you now in a little gallery view. A huge thank you to Nikita for a wonderful reading, to Deanna for a wonderful reading, for you all for your really wonderful product placement as well. It's been really impressive throughout this evening, and for just the wonderful readings as well. Angela's joining us here as well. A huge thank you to my colleague Angela Hicken, who's been looking after you all on YouTube and looking after all of us here as well behind the scenes. Without further ado, thank you to Dean as well for his wonderful readings. Thank you to everybody who's joined us on YouTube. It's been lovely reading your comments and knowing that you're out there, and for joining us kind of around the digital campfire for some wonderful poems, and hopefully they will warm our hearts on this slightly chilly October night, and let us go out into the evening with a poetry Zoom wave, which I think is how we officially decided to kind of end these events. So we're going to bid you all adieu now and wave good night. A huge thank you again to the wonderful guests tonight, to Nikita Gill, to Deanna Rodger, to Dean Atta. Good night, everybody, and we'll see you soon.